Hi, this is Dr. Maggie Perry with Tell Me What You're Proud of. In this series of short lectures, you'll learn about the core principles for overcoming an anxiety disorder or OCD. In this lecture, we'll discuss how to prepare for the anxious moment. To prepare for the anxious moment, we want to identify triggers as opportunities to practice, predict distressing thoughts, feelings, sensations, and interpretations, use our values to motivate commitment to the present moment, and use helpful self talk to strengthen our motivation and commitment to practice before, during, and after the anxious moment. First, let's talk about triggers. Triggers can be internal and they can be external. External triggers are the things that show up in your environment that make anxiety more likely. Common triggers that come to mind may include the kitchen, the door, any part of your home that reminds you of something that could go wrong. It could be your car, it could be the bus, it could be any part of the commute on your way to work. It could be showing up to work, being in a meeting, getting an email, having to give a presentation. There's all kinds of external triggers that are frequent and common for many people. You may also have internal triggers, such as an intrusive thought or an anxious sensation that doesn't necessarily have an extra predictable external trigger related to it, but the internal sensation or thought could show up at any time. We want to shift our way of thinking about those triggers away from bracing and avoiding over into opportunity. In order to teach ourselves that we can handle the anxious moment, we actually need to go towards our triggers. We need to trigger those sensations and those thoughts on purpose. Anytime you have either an internal or an external trigger, it's a huge opportunity to practice and show yourself that you can relate to it differently rather than avoiding. You want to see it as an opportunity in terms of predicting your distressing thoughts, feelings, sensations, and interpretations. You want to predict them ahead of time, not because you have to know exactly what's going to happen perfectly in the anxious moment, but the better you predict what's likely to occur, then the easier it'll be to get some distance from it. So if your trigger often makes your heart rate go up or often makes you sweaty, you you want to prepare for that. You might frequently have the same types of intrusions based on certain triggers. These are all helpful to identify beforehand so that when it shows up, rather than thinking, oh no, why am I anxious? What's happening? You can think, oh yeah, I was expecting this. This happens when I go towards my triggers, and this is my opportunity to practice. The secondary process that's very common in terms of predicting distressing thoughts and interpretations is that you may have sensations and you may have intrusive thoughts, and then you may feel hopeless, helpless, or worthless because it's happening again. So even remembering that um, I have this type of thought, I have this sensation, and then my mind says, "Oh no, it's happening again. This is going to happen forever. I'm never going to get out of this." Even noticing that your mind does that is helpful to predict. That's a common secondary process that you want to predict because then you can say again, oh, yeah, that's what happens when I do this type of activity, and not act as though it's truth. You can get to the other side of it without feeling like it's true. When we think about using values to motivate commitment to the present moment, you really want to be thinking, why is it worth it to experience this? The whole concept of going towards your anxiety is to get through your anxiety in a way that makes sense to you. Then it'll be worth it to get yourself anxious on purpose and hang out there really for its own sake so that you can show yourself rather than needing to avoid, compulse, get reassurance, or otherwise neutralize your anxious experience. It can be an opportunity for efficacy, to feel strong and courageous that you could go toward it. You can predict what's going to happen, and then you can go towards it on purpose. Show yourself you can handle it and get to the other side. And believe me, it'll feel worth it. So, going towards the anxious moment for its own sake is an opportunity for efficacy and to feel strong. But it's also worth it to think through the other ways which avoiding anxiety undermines the life you want to live. Whether it's because you can't spend time with the people that you love or you can't do things that you want to do, um, it's important to recognize that your avoidances are likely impairing your life in some way or causing you more distress than is necessary. So reflecting on that and remembering in the anxious moment that it's really an opportunity, if you get to the other side, can be a helpful way to maintain motivation even when you're distressed. Finally, let's talk about some helpful self-talk that can strengthen your motivation and commitment to the anxious moment. We want to break it down into 3 different parts: your anticipatory anxiety, your situational anxiety, and your post-event processing. In regard to anticipatory anxiety, you want to think about anticipatory anxiety as an indication of your past rather than a prediction of your future. Anticipatory anxiety is a feeling, not a fact or prediction. What happened in the past in a similar situation is that you braced and avoided, and now your fear circuitry says, hey, watch out there. Here comes the trigger again. I'm going to give you some extra adrenaline so that you know how to avoid. When this starts to happen, you want to override your fear circuitry and say, hey, no, actually, it's okay. We can hang out with this. This is just anticipatory anxiety. It's not predicting that anything bad's going to happen. It's just indicating that in the past, I've avoided. And it's important to have some amount of self-talk around that anticipatory anxiety so that you don't avoid again. Rather, you want to make it to the anxious moment where then you have the opportunity to learn something new. When you get to that anxious moment, you want to see it as an opportunity, as we've been talking about. So you might be thinking, great, I was hoping for this. This is my chance. I want to go after my anxiety. I want this to get worse. I want this to make me stronger. You really want to invite in all the sensations and whatever thoughts you're having, and whatever even your secondary process might be. That's the part of you that says, oh no, it's happening again. You want to allow that and invite that in too. Those interpretations are important to see as interpretations, and it's important to allow those to be there without dwelling in them. Finally, after the experience, you can expect to be sensitized and expect to have the urge to replay the situation. You can also reframe that as, my mind wants to replay this because I'm doing something I value, rather than getting caught up in self-criticism that often comes after an anxious experience. When people replay, they usually find something they've done wrong, and then they use it to beat themselves up afterwards. An alternative would be to say, yep, I'm sensitized. I'm proud that I did something that I value, and I'm just going to let any interpretation or the urge to criticize just let that pass. Just let it be there and let it pass. Redirect my attention to the present moment. In summary, if you regularly predict what triggers you may have, work to orient yourself to seeing the anxiety that you experience as an opportunity to practice, and then have good self-talk through your anticipatory anxiety, your situational anxiety, and your post-event processing afterwards, you're likely to have memories of success that not only are great biologically for teaching your body that you can handle it, but you also cognitively will have memories of success that you can draw upon in the future.